This message is issued by the Emergency Coordination Center. Please listen closely and follow the instructions that follow. This is not a drill. We are issuing an immediate advisory regarding unusual tree behavior reported throughout Willowrun and the surrounding forest areas. Residents are advised to avoid wooded areas, particularly during evening and overnight hours until further notice. Beginning 3 days ago, our dispatch center began receiving reports of what witnesses describe as ambulatory tree activity in residential and recreational areas of Willowrun. The first documented incident occurred Tuesday evening on Redfern Road, where longtime resident Sandra Miles reported a large Douglas fir moving across her backyard without wind or apparent cause. When Officer Jamal Ridley responded to her call, he initially dismissed the report as a possible hallucination or mistake. However, upon examining Miss Miles' property, Officer Ridley discovered a clear trail of disturbed earth and root impressions leading from the tree to within 15 feet of her back door. What began as isolated reports quickly multiplied. Within 24 hours, similar incidents were reported at Ash Pine Trailhead near Miller's Pond and in 2 separate residential neighborhoods. Local authorities initially suspected vandalism or some form of coordinated prank, but ground examination consistently revealed the same evidence. Deep furrows in the soil matching root systems, broken branches at human height, and an overwhelming scent of fresh sap and decay that witnesses describe as wrong and too sweet. The Willowrun Parks Department suspended all trail maintenance and closed Ash Pine Trailhead after Park Ranger Lena Marshall failed to return from a routine morning inspection. Her radio went silent at approximately 9:15 a.m. yesterday. Search teams found her ranger station keys and clipboard at the base of what appeared to be a recently vacated depression in the earth, surrounded by root marks extending in all directions like the arms of a massive spider. Sandra Miles had lived on Redfern Road for 37 years and knew every tree on her property by sight. Tuesday evening, she was washing dishes when movement in her peripheral vision caught her attention. At first, she thought it was her neighbor's dog, but when she looked directly through the kitchen window, she saw something that made her hands shake so badly she dropped her coffee mug. A Douglas fir, easily 60 feet tall and thick as a telephone pole, was moving across her backyard in slow, deliberate steps, not swaying or bending, but walking, its root system lifting and replanting with each measured movement. She watched for nearly 10 minutes as it approached her house, stopping just outside the glow of her porch light. The tree remained there until dawn, motionless again. But Sandra swears she could feel it, watching her windows throughout the night. When Officer Ridley arrived the following morning, he found Sandra barricaded in her bathroom, every curtain in the house drawn tight. She showed him the muddy furrows carved into her lawn, and the deep gouges in her back fence where the tree had apparently tested the barrier. Officer Ridley took photographs and measurements, noting that the root impressions matched no known tree on the property. More disturbing, the tree Sandra described was nowhere to be seen, though a conspicuous gap now existed in the tree where she insisted it had originated.
Later that same night, 17-year-old Victor Tran was night hiking near Ash Pine Trailhead when he encountered what he initially mistook for another hiker. Through the darkness, he could see a tall, thin figure moving between the trees ahead of him on the trail. Victor called out a greeting, but the figure didn't respond. As he got closer, Victor realized the person was moving in an unusual way, taking long sliding steps without apparent foot movement. When Victor used his phone's flashlight to get a better look, he found himself staring up at an enormous pine tree, its trunk twisted into an almost humanoid shape, branch arms reaching toward him in what seemed like a gesture of invitation. Victor ran. Behind him, he heard a sound he struggles to describe to this day, like wind through leaves but rhythmic, almost like breathing. When he reached his car, Victor looked back and saw the tree silhouetted against the sky, approximately 50 yards from where it had been when he first spotted it. Victor's parents found him sitting in his driveway at 3 a.m., engine running, unwilling to turn off his headlights or leave his vehicle. The pattern escalated when elderly couple Clarence and Dana Brooks were camping at Miller's Pond in their RV. Around midnight, they were awakened by what sounded like knocking on their door. Dana looked through the window but saw nothing. The knocking continued, moving around the RV in a slow circle. When Clarence opened the door to investigate, he found himself face to face with what he describes as a tree trying to be polite. A massive oak stood directly in front of their RV. its lower branches arranged in a configuration that resembled arms folded, patiently waiting. Clarence slammed the door and called 911. But during the 40-minute wait for emergency response, the couple listened to the sound of roots tapping against their RV's undercarriage in a steady, patient rhythm. When police arrived, they found the Brooks huddled together in their vehicle, which was now completely surrounded by a grove of trees that Dana swears had not been there when they set up camp. The trees formed a perfect circle around the RV, leaving just enough space for the couple to feel trapped, but not quite enclosed. It took a road crew with chainsaws 3 hours to clear a path for the Brooks to leave, and every tree they cut bled sap that witnesses described as warm and too red. Several residents have attempted to defend themselves or drive off these mobile trees with consistently disturbing results. Renee Caldwell's 8-year-old daughter began drawing pictures at Greystone Elementary that comes to smile at me. When Renee examined these drawings, she was alarmed by their detailed depiction of a willow tree with human-like facial features formed in its bark. That evening, Renee discovered such a tree standing outside her daughter's bedroom window. Armed with her late husband's hunting rifle, Renee fired 3 shots directly at the trunk from a distance of less than 20 feet. Neighbors reported hearing the gunfire, but when police arrived, they found all 3 bullets embedded in the wall of the house behind where the tree had stood, as if they had passed through empty air. The tree remained in place until sunrise, during which time Renee's daughter insisted it was singing her a lullaby in a voice that sounded like rustling leaves. Renee would not let investigators interview her daughter, stating only that the child now refuses to sleep in her own room and has begun speaking to empty corners of the house in a language Renee doesn't recognize. Dr. Thomas Vick, Willowrun's respected arborist for over 20 years, attempted a more scientific approach when a massive maple appeared in the town square, positioned directly in front of the war memorial, where no tree had stood before. Dr. Vick brought soil pH testing equipment, core sampling tools, and a team of graduate students to study the phenomenon. When he attempted to take a core sample from the tree's trunk, his drill bit shattered on contact, despite the bark appearing soft and pliable to the touch. More unsettling, when Dr. Vick's team tried to measure the tree's circumference, their tape measures consistently showed different readings each time, as if the tree was subtly expanding and contracting while they worked. Dr. Vick's final report, submitted to the city council before his abrupt resignation, contained only a single sentence: "The trees are not trees anymore, and we should stop pretending we understand what they want." Dr. Vick left town that same evening and has not responded to attempts to contact him. We have identified 4 distinct stages in what appears to be a pattern of escalating tree behavior. Understanding these stages may help you recognize and respond appropriately to the threat. Stage 1 is observation. Witnesses report feeling watched while in wooded areas or near large trees. Your dog may begin pacing or whining for no apparent reason. Birds in the area often fall silent abruptly. You may notice trees that seem out of place or positioned differently than you remember, though the change is subtle enough to make you question your own memory. Stage 2 involves positioning. Trees begin appearing in locations where they logically should not exist, near buildings, in clearings, or blocking paths that were open the day before. The trees often arrange themselves to create barriers or to isolate specific individuals or buildings. During this stage, the trees remain stationary during daylight hours, but may shift position during darkness. Stage 3 is direct interaction. The trees actively approach inhabited areas, making contact with buildings, vehicles, or people. They may knock on doors, tap on windows, or position themselves to block exits. Witnesses describe feeling as though the trees are attempting to communicate, though the nature of that communication remains unclear. Electronic devices often malfunction during this stage, and photographs taken of the trees frequently show distortions or appear completely blank. Stage 4 is what we're calling active pursuit. The trees begin following specific individuals, appearing wherever their target goes. They show patience and intelligence, waiting outside homes and workplaces for extended periods. During this stage, the trees become increasingly bold, approaching during daylight hours and showing no fear of human presence or activity. If you encounter a tree exhibiting any of these behaviors, Follow these safety guidelines without deviation. Do not attempt to touch, damage, or remove the tree. Every documented attempt to harm these entities has resulted in weapon failure, ineffective impact, or escalated aggressive behavior from the tree. Do not take the photographs or video recordings, as this appears to attract their attention and may mark you for continued contact. If a tree approaches your home, remain inside and avoid looking directly at it through windows. Close all curtains and avoid making noise that might indicate your presence. Do not use electric lights near windows, as the trees appear drawn to illumination. Wait until full daylight before moving between rooms, and never leave your home while the tree is present. If you encounter a tree while in a vehicle, do not stop or exit the vehicle. Continue driving at normal speed and avoid sudden movements or honking your horn. If the tree blocks your path, put the vehicle in reverse and back away slowly until you can find an alternate route. Do not attempt to drive through or around the tree. If you are on foot when you encounter one of these entities, do not run unless you are certain you can reach safety without stopping. Move slowly and avoid direct eye contact. Do not speak to the tree or make any vocalizations. If possible, back away while keeping the tree in your peripheral vision. Seek shelter in the nearest building and remain there until you are certain the tree has moved on. The situation in Willowrun continues to evolve in ways that challenge our understanding of natural behavior. What began as isolated incidents has developed into a coordinated pattern affecting the entire region. Emergency response teams report increasing difficulty accessing affected areas as roads become blocked by trees that appear overnight. Communication equipment fails when teams venture too deep into wooded areas, and several search and rescue operations have been abandoned when personnel reported feeling hurted by moving tree lines. Campers Kyle and Brianna Devine managed to capture 14 minutes of footage on their GoPro camera before disappearing near Old Quarry Overlook. The recovered camera shows the couple setting up their tent as normal, but the trees visible in the background of their footage are not the same trees that appear in the foreground, despite the camera never moving position. In the final minutes of recording, dozens of trees can be seen slowly converging on the campsite from all directions, moving with coordinated precision. The footage ends abruptly when the camera appears to be lifted into the air by unseen branches. Kyle and Brianna have not been found, though search teams discovered their tent surrounded by a perfect circle of trees, each positioned exactly 8 feet from the tent's center. Inside the tent, investigators found the couple's personal belongings arranged in neat rows, as if someone had carefully organized them for display. Their sleeping bags were laid out with precise military-style corners, and their hiking boots were placed side by side at the foot of each bag, though both showed signs of recent wear and were filled with rich dark soil that doesn't match any known soil composition in the area. The Forest Service has suspended all logging operations and declared a moratorium on tree removal within a 50-mile radius of Willowrun. Satellite imagery reveals that the tree canopy in affected areas has increased by approximately 30% over the past week, despite no new planting or natural regeneration occurring in the region during that time frame. Military consultation has been requested, though initial reconnaissance flights report navigation equipment failures and radio interference when aircraft approach the affected areas. Pilots describe a sense of disorientation and report seeing movement in the forest canopy that doesn't match wind patterns or natural tree sway. You are advised to remain in populated areas and avoid any location where trees outnumber buildings. Do not camp, hike, or venture into wooded areas for any reason. If your residence borders forested land, consider temporary relocation to a more urban area until this situation is resolved. Watch for changes in the trees near your home. If you notice new trees, moved trees, or trees that seem to be positioned in deliberate patterns, contact emergency services immediately, but do not approach the trees yourself. Trust your instincts. If a wooded area feels wrong or unwelcoming, leave immediately. Remember that traditional methods of tree removal have proven ineffective and dangerous. Chainsaws malfunction, axes bounce off bark that should be soft, and even heavy machinery has failed to move trees that appear to be rooted only in deep Fire seems to have no effect, with witnesses reporting that flames simply die out when they contact the bark, regardless of accelerants used. This broadcast will repeat every hour on this frequency. Additional updates will be provided as new information becomes available. If emergency services become unavailable in your area, make your way to the town center and await further instruction. Stay indoors after dark. Trust what you see, not what should be possible. And remember, if the forest has gone quiet, it means they're listening. This has been the Emergency Coordination Center. Stay safe, Willow.